Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. We're your guys, Derek and Chase. Guys, we are 2 days away, to be exact, 2 days away.
A Matt Ryan away.
A Matt Ryan away. Thankfully, it's more exciting than his 2022 season, which is a great thing. So, guys, we're only a few days away from the NFL draft. So much to get done, so much to talk about. There's a lot going on, and we are obviously going to be watching the draft. And if you guys want to watch a live reaction to it, be sure to check us out on Bring the Juice Colts podcast. We'll be on there. I know Chase will be there with me. Obviously, my guy Cody, we'll all be there reacting. So make sure to check that out. But the first thing we got to talk about before we even get into any of the draft news is the fact of a person who just got traded yesterday that we were wondering if he was actually going to get traded before the draft. And that's Aaron Rodgers. So Aaron Rodgers officially is being traded to the New York Jets. Now, remember, Chase, it's funny. A month ago, we heard that it was almost official that he was going to be a Jet. But then again, nothing ever officially got done. And everyone thought it was. And then trade talks just stopped. And then a day after the trade talks started resuming again, then immediately there's a trade. And so the New York Jets gave up, or basically the two teams swapped picks this year for a first rounder, gave up a conditional first rounder for next year if Rodgers plays 65 to 70% of the snaps, and also a second rounder, one of their second rounders this year. So what do you make of the trade, and what's your reaction to Aaron Rodgers finally being a New York Jet?
Jets also got a sixth rounder as well. That might be irrelevant to some people, but it
is a pick. So.
It's a pick that can still be of use. You got to remember Antonio Brown was picked in the sixth round of the NFL draft at one point. You find diamonds in the rough. Brock Purdy was picked with the very last pick in the draft.
I know, right? So it is kind of one of those things. We talk about the first and second rounders like they're a surefire thing, but the great GMs of the world know how to find talent in those late rounds.
And Isaiah Pacheco was a seventh round running back that was picked by the Chiefs. So we always do talk about the first and second rounders, but there's been a lot more first round busts than there have been in the later rounds recently. It usually seems like the later rounds, anywhere from the third on, we've been getting a lot of diamonds in the roughs and a lot of hits lately. So that's really good. But in all reality, the Jets finally got their quarterback. Aaron Rodgers, they wouldn't have traded 2 first-round picks because it's going to be a second first-rounder for next year, because we know that Aaron Rodgers is a journeyman. Not a journeyman, an Iron Man.
He very rarely misses games.
Yeah. So we know that he's going to be out there, and just looking at him, the Jets finally have their guy. And I saw something today. Carson Palmer is a freaking bum. He is such a bum of a guy and thinks that he knows how the NFL is nowadays. Because I saw a video today where he was saying, well, Aaron Rodgers is now in a worse situation because he does not have a true number one wide receiver. He doesn't have a good running back like you do in Aaron Jones and everything. Like, you're missing Aaron Jones, and he doesn't have a Devontae Adams of the world on the New York Jets. So he's kind of downgraded with weapons a little bit, and it's gonna be a little bit harder for him. I'm like, does he forget Garrett Wilson exists? Does he forget how good Breece Hall was before getting injured? Like he's got weapons. Not to mention he's got Alan Lazard, Mecole Hardman,
he's
Corey
got a
Davis.
Much better collection of weapons this year than he did last year,
and he's got a top 7 defense. That Jets defense was ranked 8th last year.
Yeah, and it's a team. This Jets team may not ever go to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers in the next 2 years that they'll have him, but at the end of the day, it puts them in a much better position, especially for if you're the Jets and you want to look at the future of your quarterback position. This now gives you some time to kind of weigh your options. What do you want to do afterwards? But it's funny because, people are talking about this, like, what does this do for Zach Wilson? And, it's funny because I remember the quote that Zach Wilson had when he said, I'm going to make the guy's life hell, whoever they trade to bring in. Yeah. Good luck with that, Zach Wilson. It's funny just because, to me, I've said it for long after this season was over. Zach Wilson's days are numbered.
They are.
I don't think there's any way, because not only has his talent lost and his production's lost, but he's kind of lost the locker room. When you have got your own teammates going out celebrating that they got Aaron Rodgers to replace you, like that shows you they don't have confidence in you, bro. They don't got confidence in you. They've been preaching to get Aaron Rodgers over here. If they were content with you and the kind of person that you were, they wouldn't be doing this. So obviously, he has not only lost his way in comes of production, he has also lost it in the locker room and the respect of his guys. So it's going to be tough.
Let's talk about how much of a genius Joe Douglas is. This is a guy that had 3 first-round picks last year, traded up back into the first round to get Jermaine Johnson, which was one of the premier edge rushers of it all. He had Garrett Wilson fall into his lap.
I know.
With that 10th
Unbelievable.
pick, and then he had Sauce fall into his lap at 4.
He got lucky with the fact that teams in front of them were stupid enough to let guys like that fall. Sauce Gardner, who, was by far and away, everyone was saying was by all means a top 10 corner last year. And then Garrett Wilson, who obviously Atlanta had a chance to get him,
of the year.
and one rookie of the year. So, it's great for Aaron Rodgers because he gets a young prospect in Garrett Wilson, who is going to be a baller. And especially with Aaron Rodgers throwing in the football, that's a great situation. Has a couple of other guys in there with Corey Davis and a few others that are really good at playing football. And of course, like you said, Breece Hall's going to be back, presumably healthy all year. That's going to be huge. And then this offensive line is going to start getting amped up so much more. Mekhi Becton might be back. The Jets might still be able to get some good offensive line help with the pick that they acquired from Green Bay. Remember, they just switched picks. They didn't give anything up in that first round. They're just switching. I don't remember the draft order.
That's exactly what I was going to say. No, the Jets are picking 15 and the Packers are picking 13th right now. And that's what I was just going to say. Joe Douglas is a freaking genius when it comes to moving the draft because
so that's 13, 15.
Because
you moved back 2 spots.
He didn't give up a first round.
And you can easily get a very, very good offensive lineman in there. And one of the best offensive linemen. There's still a possibility guys like a Paris Johnson are there, or Peter Skoronski is there, or if you wanted to go with a DeJuan Jones for all that matter. Like there's so many different options for you at
Broderick
that spot.
Jones too.
Yeah, Broderick Jones. I forgot about that one. It's and the Jets have it in so many different ways. They could even add another elite wide receiver if they wanted to. If they felt comfortable with their offensive line just as it's built right now, then Then they get Quentin Johnson, or they get
Jordan
Addison, or I don't think there's any way that Jackson Smith and Jigba falls to 15, but there's wide receivers you can get. There's corners that you can get at that spot. The Jets have so many different things. So they not only got their quarterback, but they also only moved back 2 spots in order to acquire him. So that's
what I'm saying. Like Joe Douglas was able to get that 2nd round pick from Cleveland. They swapped picks. So he basically got a 2nd round pick, 42 overall from Cleveland. And they had 42 and 43. They gave their 3rd round pick to Cleveland in the Elijah Moore trade.
Yeah.
And they took that 42nd pick that they got from Cleveland and gave it to Green Bay. So now you're sitting here with the 15th overall pick, and you're sitting here with the 43rd overall pick, and you don't have a 3rd rounder because you gave it to Cleveland. But other than that, they still got their
premium position.
They still got the 2 picks, and all it costed you was basically a 1st rounder for next year.
Yeah. Most likely, but at least for at least the next 2 years, Aaron Rodgers being out there gives you a chance to at least get it to the playoffs and make some noise. And that's the biggest aspect here, is the New York Jets wanting to finally get some playoff success for the first time in basically over 15 years.
Since Sanchez
was there. And that's been a long time ago. So it's good for the city of it's good for the New York Jets franchise to be able to get to that situation. Now,
I saw a video today that cracked me up because it's just like, who is the better Aaron in New York, Aaron Judge or Aaron Rodgers? I'm like, Aaron Rodgers, no question. And they're like, are you kidding me? They're like, Aaron Judge has broken records and done this. And I'm like, how many MVPs does Aaron Judge have? How many rings does Aaron Judge have? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But they're like, oh, but he's been in New York longer. I'm like, that doesn't matter. It said who's the better Aaron in New York.
Now, ironically enough, this was the same thing that Brett Favre did at the end of his career, went to the Jets after he retired from the Green Bay and then went on to go to the Jets.
And you know what he did? He won the first playoff game with the Jets, won the second, went to the AFC Championship, and lost.
No, that one was in Minnesota.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He went to the NFC Championship.
Yeah, he went to the NFC Championship afterwards.
Watch Rodgers retire and come back to the Vikings.
Yeah, they were talking about it like, oh, that's funny that Rodgers is doing the exact same thing that Brett Favre did with his career. It's pretty funny. But we're going to go ahead now. We're going to go into the draft content, guys. Top 10 picks. We're going to kind of just go with the flow here on what we presume is going to be the top picks in this draft.
So for those of you that don't know the order of the picks, rattle them off real quick. Carolina number 1, Houston number 2, Cardinals number 3, the Indianapolis Colts at number 4, Seahawks at number 5, Lions at 6, Raiders at 7, Falcons at 8, Bears at 9, and then we rounded off the top 10 with the Philadelphia Eagles going in the top 10. And Derek, may I just say, like I was going to say the other day when we were trying to do the podcast, is we could see a majority of offensive players come off the board in the first 10 picks. We could only see 4 defensive players in the first 10.
Because, you presume that these top 4 quarterbacks are going to go in the first 10. You presume a wide receiver is going to get picked. You presume at least two offensive linemen. So, because only a few guys, maybe Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, and maybe one of these corners is going to be in a situation to be a top 10 pick.
I'd say 2. Christian Gonzalez at
Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon.
We'll go ahead and talk about the picks. So Derek, number 1, who do we think that is going to be? I said it should have been CJ Stroud because personally I think that he's got all the measurables that Frank Reich's looking for. He's got everything that you need. He's got great ability, great pocket presence, pocket awareness, strong arm, accurate. We got the height, the build, the body type, but the consensus that everybody's going with is Bryce Young.
Yes, I would have said the same thing, and that's what I presume is going to be the consensus because the GM is the one making the pick. Now, if this was Frank Reich, obviously Frank Reich has a say in the matter, but when it comes to the pick,
it's the owner making the choice right now.
The owner and the GM are the ones that make the final decision. And I think when you listen to Dave Tepper talk, everything he loves about a quarterback is Bryce Young. So I think ultimate consensus here is Bryce Young is going to go number 1. If he doesn't, then we'll make it up as we go along.
It's not the height that really is concerning to me. Like the height is something that people do worry about, but it's more of his body size. Like
it's the body.
He's 185.
It's the body, 100%. Because the height is obviously a concern, but like you said, it's not the biggest concern to me. It is more of like you said, the body frame and being able to withstand all the torment that guy's going to have to take over the first 4 years of his career. He's smarter at avoiding contact than Kyler Murray is, but at the same time, it's Kyler Murray's injury was not due to getting hit. It was just off of him doing that. Now, I think Bryce Young is a smarter football player. I think he's a more dedicated football player, which could probably lead to him having more success further down the line than Kyler Murray. I think we all know that Kyler Murray's talented enough. The only problem is his dedication. I don't think he's very dedicated to the game.
Yeah, I think that's what sets him and Bryce Young apart. But.
So we'll go ahead and go Bryce Young, number 1. That's what the consensus is. Now, with the Texans at number 2, that's been the topic all along, was that if the Panthers take the quarterback, then who is it that they're going to take? I was saying Richardson first, now leaning towards Levis. Well, that's kind of funny. It just all depends on what they want to do. But the Texans at number 2 now. Do you think that they don't go quarterback since Bryce Young is getting taken by Carolina at number 1?
there's a lot of rumors going around that that part of the reason why Houston doesn't want to go with CJ Stroud, because the building split. The building loves CJ Stroud, but the building hates CJ Stroud. Like there's an in-between marker with them too. And so there's rumors going around saying part of the reason why is because he's got the same agent as Deshaun Watson. They don't want to have anything associated with him being a part of the Houston Texans, and they didn't like anybody else outside of CJ Stroud. So they're not going to go with any quarterback here. And they say they're going to take a risk and either go with Will Levis if they deem fit, or they're going to go with the best defensive player available with Will Anderson. So for the sake of this draft or this
Can
pick
you
that we're doing,
let them in? I don't have my key.
yeah.
I'm dumb. That's my fault. Hey, I accidentally locked my girl and my buddy's wife out of the apartment. So that's something. Sorry, girls.
So,
all right.
So anyway, what I was saying is, for the sake of this, let's just go ahead right off the bat, choose a phenomenal defensive talent for the Houston Texans, because if they really are passing up on a quarterback, defense is where they're going to go, especially with DeMeco Ryans as their head coach.
As their head coach.
Give them Will Anderson.
Yeah. I'm going Will Anderson with that. I agree. I know Bryce Young's going in the top 2. I know he's been talked to by somebody, because there's a reason why he only visited Carolina or the Houston Texans, because somebody told him that if you get to us, we're gonna take you.
Who? So, Will Anderson?
No, Bryce Young.
Oh,
I'm saying Bryce Young got told either by the Panthers or the Texans that they're selecting him, and that's why he only met with those 2 teams. So, and that's why he canceled all of his other meetings, because he knows he's getting taken in the top 2. My guess is that Houston wants Bryce Young if Carolina doesn't go with him at that pick. So if Bryce Young is taken first, then I expect Houston to go best defensive player. If they don't go Bryce Young, then I fully expect Bryce Young to be taken number 2. Now, what do you do if you're Arizona at number 3? I don't know if we're going to trade it here, but it definitely has been the pick that has been talked about the most of trade offers everywhere, because Arizona's pick is so feisty.
Now, Derek, I don't know what Chris Ballard's line of thinking is with this, but I kind of have that feeling, at least from an outsider's perspective, that they really love CJ Stroud. They like everything that's about him. Shane Steichen loves everything to do with him as well. And I think that if he's there at 3, I think that Chris Ballard is going to make the choice to trade up and take CJ Stroud, because you have several teams, the Seahawks, that are interested in him. The Raiders have expressed massive interest in CJ Stroud. The Tennessee Titans have expressed interest in him.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see those 3 teams trying to go ahead of the Indianapolis Colts and getting him. And if he's the guy that they really want and that they wanted all along, go get him.
I think one of the things that I could see happening is the Raiders trading up to number 3 and selecting Anthony Richardson. I could see that being a possibility, because you have Jimmy G as starting quarterback for your next 2 years, sitting Anthony Richardson behind him for a while, letting him get used to the game would be a great situation for him going into Vegas for that situation. I don't think there's a team out there that has a quarterback that's going to say, we want to take CJ Stroud and we're going to make him sit for 2 years. I don't think that's how that scenario is going to go. So if there was any team that I could see jumping, it would end up having to be
the
Titans or the Falcons. Now, I know you said that Desmond Ridder is their guy, and obviously they've said that.
They believe in him.
There has been a lot of there's been guys that say, oh, we believe in a guy, but we're going to take somebody else anyway. We've seen it happen, a.k.a., Green Bay. Why the hell would Green Bay ever get a quarterback when,
don't be shocked if the Lions go for CJ Stroud too.
I would say maybe they'd actually go Anthony Richardson instead, because I've seen a lot of people say that Stroud is a lot like the same thing as Jared Goff. I think the thing is they have confidence still in Goff moving forward, at least for this year. And then, Anthony Richardson could be phenomenal in an offensive system run by Ben Johnson. But let's just say for all intents and purposes, that Arizona does not trade that pick for some weird reason. What do you see them doing? Because I'm stuck. Do you think they take Jalen Carter? Do you think they go with a cornerback?
There's been several reports that Arizona does not want to take the risk of Jalen Carter because of everything that happened. They were dead set on Will Anderson, and I think that if he's not available, they will trade out of that spot to go back.
Cody's in here. Breadsticks, get out of here, bro. So if I am the Arizona Cardinals, right here's where you take Tyree Wilson. You're going to go with the defensive guy in Tyree Wilson.
I'm going to go with the defensive guy in Tyree Wilson because you got to think about it. You don't have Chandler Jones on that line anymore.
Think of how stupid the rankings are. He's 28th.
Yeah, he's ranked 28th. That's dumb.
Which is dumb, and this is why I don't.
But I think that if Will Anderson's gone, they're going to go with an edge rusher. They don't have J.J. Watt anymore. They don't have Chandler Jones. I think Tyree Wilson's going to be the next best defensive end that they're going to choose, and I think that that's where they're going to go. Is they're going to try the defensive line. Yeah. So I think Tyree Wilson would be a good pick.
I could see something crazy like that happening. I absolutely could. And then the Indianapolis Colts. They now have their selection of C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, and of course Anthony Richardson. Now I could see this going back and forth between Richardson and Stroud, but I definitely think, and you know what? And there's been even talks like everyone seems to think that Will Levis is the counterpart to what Indy wants to have. But I'm agreeing with you that if C.J. Stroud is somehow there at 4, then I think the Indianapolis
out of those 3, C.J. Stroud is probably the most prepared to be a starter because he had 3 years in the same system. Anthony Richardson didn't. Not to mention Shane Steichen having a guy with great accuracy. He talked about in his press conference, accuracy was a big thing for him. Not to mention he's got the prototypical body size. He's got the height, he's got the weight, he's got the build, he's got the arm, he's got everything that you are looking for in a top tier quarterback. And I think that Shane Steichen is going to get the best out of him, and he'll be the best one to come in and play right away.
Yeah, he's going to be ready to play right away. His poise is really good. Learning from my prediction is Shane Steichen just gets the absolute best out of Stroud.
Your Bills are gonna get the Bijan Robinson. I'm calling it.
All right. So Seattle here at number 5.
Anthony Richardson.
Really? I don't think so.
I
don't think so.
I have been seeing like several Twitter accounts, several reports. Even ESPN was talking about it today that Seattle is really big on going younger, getting Anthony Richardson, letting him sit behind Geno for a year or 2, letting him develop, and then throwing him into the fire. And I think that they are going to take the chance on a guy like Anthony Richardson rather than
I don't know if I can get with that, though. I can see why you would say that, and I definitely agree in some way. But I think if you're sitting there and you're looking at Jalen Carter still being there at 5, the immediate impact that makes on your defense. I mean, Geno Smith already has that team loaded up, and when it comes to the fact that they have him on lockdown for 3 years, you can always reinvest.
But Seattle's not going to be picking this high in the draft for a while. And not to mention, Anthony Richardson's talent is way better than Geno Smith.
I can understand that. I can understand that.
They're not going to pick this high in quite some time. And go.
You know what? Just because I agree with you and think that this draft's going to have some wildness, I can see it happening. We'll go with Anthony Richardson with Seattle because, like you said, they're not going to pick that high for a while. Geno's going to keep them in playoff contention for the next few years. You're right. Let Anthony Richardson sit behind him for 2 years, and he's going to only be 23
and playing with the coach such as Pete Carroll, who's done a great job at the quarterbacks that he's had. It's been great. Now going on to the Detroit Lions, I think their biggest need right now, a young corner. They got rid of Jeff Okudah and everything.
There are 3 picks that I could, and I think You're absolutely right. When it comes to, and that's weird too that PFF has not upgraded this because you're right. They got rid of Jeff Okuda, who was their only legit, real number one corner. So
they got
it's
Cam
like
Sutton.
they have a lot of different places that they need help with on the defense. And Jalen Carter might be the best overall prospect. But when it comes to the most specific need for that defense, it's 100% cornerback position because
Their
you
secondary,
need
yep.
a true number one. Now, I think
Devin Witherspoon is the best.
Devin Witherspoon is best lockdown, but I think for me, I think Christian Gonzalez is going to end up being the number one consensus due to the fact that his body build is different. It's bigger. And when it comes to the turnover differential, the turnovers he forces is insane. So I think that Christian Gonzalez, by consensus,
I know, but
will
you need the lockdown guy because if you're gonna go against Justin Jefferson and DJ Moore twice a year, you're gonna need the lockdown corner.
I understand the lockdown corner, but I mean it's different with Devin Witherspoon. It's not Devin Witherspoon is a really great corner, but it's not locked down like what Sauce Gardner was. Sauce Gardner went his entire NFL or college career without giving up a touchdown. Like Devin Witherspoon is not that elite, but he's still really good. But I think just when you look at it, Christian Gonzalez has 14 interceptions in his 3-year career there in Oregon. Like, I mean, that's just phenomenal. You can't replace that. So I'm just going to go with Gonzalez because of the consensus. But obviously, we both agree corner is the biggest need for Detroit.
I think corner here as well. Now I know that Jalen Carter's still on the board, but the Raiders have already came out and said they came out and said that they do not like what Jalen Carter was in terms of like his pro day and in terms of the.
He said, "Where's Peyton Manatee? He's around here somewhere.
He better be there Thursday.
He's gonna be here somewhere. I have no idea where he is right now, but I gotta find him."
But no, I do know that the Raiders are looking at secondary because you cannot name a single secondary that the Raiders have. Not a single one. And they got Max Crosby and Chandler Jones on the defensive line. I think that they can hold down the defensive line for a little bit. So I think that secondary is where you need to go. Devin Witherspoon's a solid choice right here.
I can see it.
Now here with the Atlanta Falcons at number 9, here's where Jalen Carter, I feel like, comes off the board.
Could potentially come off the board. You could potentially see them go with offensive line. You could potentially see them go another wide receiver here. Is this a situation where we see Jackson Smith and Jigba come off? Nope. You know, Desmond Ridder, who only has one true wide receiver right now, you know, is that a thing? But I think that when you're looking at, like you said, I agree with you. When it comes to the consensus, Jalen Carter's clearly the best player still remaining on the draft board.
They've been trying to build that defensive line. They got Calais Campbell. They got Jesse Bates.
Here's what I think happens. So this is what I think happens. So this is what I'm going to do. Chicago is going to trade that pick and is going to end up getting this one. I'm going to see if I can potentially do that. We're going to force this trade because, it won't let me do it.
You got to choose a pick for the 2024. You got to choose a pick.
No, I ain't got to do that. It's not letting me do it anyway. It's not going to let me do it because the thing is stupid. Here's what I think is going to happen. Since we're just going to pretend that this is the Bears pick. The Bears are going to trade up to number 8.
That's not what I think is going to happen.
Going to get Jalen Carter.
That's not what I think is going to happen. What I think is going to happen is I think you're going to start seeing teams seeing how Will Levis is still available and everything. Teams are going to start, figuring out who is going to want to be up at that top choice and everything. The Raiders have even said that their quarterback's not off the board since they got Jimmy G.
But the Raiders taking Will
Levis,
right
now I could see the Titans trading up to the Falcons. They only dropped 3 picks. Mm-hmm. The Titans trading up, getting Will Levis, maybe sitting behind Matt Ryan, if not starting and everything.
You mean Ryan Tannehill?
Sorry. Ryan Tannehill, but I could see that. I could see him.
I
sit
could see
behind-
that. I could see the Titans trading up to number 8 and taking Will Levis because they're not sold on Ryan Tannehill anymore.
Mhm.
They don't have faith in Malik Willis.
Right.
So go and get a guy that you can sit for a year, and then when you're ready to can Tannehill at the end of the year, then you go and you have Will
You
Levis
get out from
there as
under
an option.
Tannehill's contract. You got
You
a
got
rookie
guy-
quarterback
yeah.
for 5 years and everything.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're going to do is they're going to trade up, get Will Levis before the Bucks trade up and get him before, somebody else like Washington trades
Mhm.
up and get him. You're going to see at that number 8 pick, it's going to be a keen piece to figure out who they're going to get. I think you'll see the Tennessee Titans trading up.
Yeah, I could see it too. We'll just pretend it's there. Now, this is where I see Jalen Carter coming off the board with Chicago. They're looking for some more defensive line help. They don't have anyone solid on the defensive line anymore. They got rid of both their edge rushers. They got those linebackers right. They're set at linebacker. You're not wanting to take the risk on a corner right now in this spot. So go and get the best one.
Derek,
left.
get a thumbnail, you animal.
Shut up, Cody. Jalen Carter's coming off the board at 9 to Chicago because I think that was where a lot of people thought was going to happen in the first place. And then you have the Eagles. And this is an interesting one because look at the stupidity of this. Look at wide receiver as a need. They have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith.
Who do they got outside of that, though?
It doesn't matter. You have an elite number 1 and you have a really good number 2.
What
You
happens
don't
if AJ Brown goes
I
down?
understand that, but I'm saying that there are teams that legitimately don't have a true number 1 or even a number 2. They have one of the best number 1s and one of probably the best number 2.
Right, but what happened when Jamar Chase went down for the Bengals this year?
I understand
They had
but I'm
Tyler
saying-
Boyd
but
and
it's
T.
not
Higgins.
but it's not a need. There is more positions that they have a need for than that, and it's specifically either offensive line or their defensive line.
But you got to look at it this way. The Eagles are one of the most well-rounded, put-together teams out there. They don't really have too many holes on their roster.
I just don't think there's any way they go wide receiver. Now I could only freaking imagine Jackson Smith and Jigba at 10. And that wide receiver unit, it's the best wide receiver unit in the NFL. And I'd even put it over the trio in Cincinnati right now. I would put it over that because I don't think that Tyler Boyd's going to end up being anything like Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jackson Smith and Jigba is so good. I think at some point he is going to lead the NFL in receptions at some point in his career. He's going to finish a year with the most receptions of any wide receiver in the NFL. That's how good he is. So could only imagine that. But, do we think that they go that route? Because I don't think there's any interior offensive linemen that you're taking this early. I don't know how their tackle depth looks.
Outside of Lane Johnson, they really have nobody else.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
not
the kind of thing.
Not to
where
mention,
people
I don't
are
know
like,
who their right tackle is either. But
that's Lane Johnson. Lane Johnson's their right
who's
tackle.
their left one then?
I have no idea.
Peter Skoronski's a left tackle.
Yes, and so is Paris Johnson.
Right.
So I want to look at the Eagles depth chart, and I want to see how.
Right now, I want to
that
give a
looks.
quick shout out to everybody in the chat that is participating in this live stream. Thank you guys so much for showing your support. And
Jordan Mailata.
Oh, Jordan Mailata. Oh, that's a pretty good left tackle. Anyway,
and Landon Dickerson.
Anyway,
Jason
like I was saying though,
Mailata.
appreciate you guys for showing up. Make sure that you smash the like button and get anybody else in here that loves to talk about football and loves to see this. Cody, we're working on trying to grow this channel and stuff as well, trying to get the thumbnails, even a logo for this channel and stuff like that. So it will get better and get more popular. You guys just keep tuning in.
It's just so weird because it's like, you're right. Like the Eagles don't have a ton of positions where they necessarily need to open it up. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is to the point where they're just like, we'll just take the best player available. And that could be in Jigba at this spot.
Honestly, what I've been seeing is tons of people mocking Bijan right here because they don't have a running back.
They got Miles Sanders, don't they?
No, Sanders went to the Panthers.
Sanders went to the Panthers. That could be interesting.
I could see Bijan Robinson going to the Eagles right here. This would be the earliest Bijan would go.
Or is it a situation where they trade out of it?
That's
Because
another situation because they've only got 5 picks total in the draft.
Move back maybe 3 or 4 picks, and then you acquire an extra second and a third out of that.
Now,
And then you can get and then you can still get Bijan Robinson at that spot, because I don't think Bijan Robinson's going to go that early. Earliest I've seen is in the early 20s. When you're talking about
the Chargers, maybe.
Yeah, the early 20s, because nobody wants to take a running back that early anymore. But
you know what I could see happening, Derek? I see the Detroit Lions trading up right here. The Detroit
Lions.
The Detroit Lions trading up right here and possibly getting Jackson Smith.
I could see it.
Because with Jamison Williams gone for the first 6 games,
you only have Amon-Ra St. Brown.
You got Reynolds and you got Marvin Jones, but Reynolds is a number 3, and Marvin Jones is good, but he's getting up there in age.
But obviously, yeah. So it's Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have an elite number 1. But your number 2, who you're presuming number 2 is going to miss the early part of the season. And, that's great to have that number 2, but then who's your slot guy, right? And Jigba can fill that role immediately. And then if you thought that offense for the Detroit Lions was deadly last year, oh my God, I can only imagine the production Jared Goff could have with him and Jigba on the field. I'm down for that. The Lions trading up to the Eagles at number 10 and taking Jackson Smith and Jigba. I could totally see that. So we said Carolina with the first pick in the draft is going to get Bryce Young. And with that, the Texans are going to stay put, and they're going to take the best defensive player in the draft in Will Anderson. The Cardinals, just for this sake, are not going to trade this pick, but they're going to get Tyree Wilson, who is probably the second or third best defensive lineman in the draft. The Colts are going to acquire C.J. Stroud, fixing their quarterback problem. Seattle is going to go wild card and go Anthony Richardson at number 5.
You're going to get a lot of shocking surprises with this draft.
And we had the first one with the Lions. They're going to take Christian Gonzalez, the consensus number 1 corner. The Raiders taking Devin Witherspoon.
Needing secondary because they don't have anybody.
We had the Titans trading up to number 8 with the Falcons and taking Will Levis. Chicago taking Jalen Carter at 9. And then the Lions trading up again to the number 10 spot to go and acquire Jackson Smith and Jigba. Now, that would be an insane.
And the Lions, everybody's worried about them getting defense. They got 2 second-round picks to work with to try to get.
And even if they gave up, if they gave up on one of them, right? Even if he gave up one, hell, you can give up both. I don't care. You just got a corner. You already got the secondary help. If you give up a second rounder, that's fine. The amount of depth for the cornerback position is so deep this year. Even in the 3rd round, you could still get a solid depth piece.
I can see Kelee Ringo still being there in the 3rd round.
I don't see it. I think he's gone by the 2nd. I don't think he gets he may not get in the 1st because there's probably 6 different corners that could be taken before him. But there's no way that Kelee Ringo, to me, escapes the 2nd, especially when he has had multiple top 30 visits. So it goes to show you just how many teams really want a guy like that. And if he's still there in the 2nd round, can totally see that scenario happening.
All right. To recap, that was it. The last topic that we had was talking about where the quarterbacks are going to land. And we already just talked about it right here. We do think that number 5 will be a little bit tricky spot with Anthony Richardson because the Seahawks fall in love with him. They really value him and everything, figuring out what they're going to do with that position in the future. I think that is a perfect spot for Anthony Richardson right now. And then Will Levis going to the Titans.
I could totally see a situation where the Las Vegas Raiders trade up to number 3 and acquire Anthony Richardson.
I could see that too.
I could see it.
Right now they're trying to build their defense because they have a garbage defense. They were ranked 30th in total defense.
Yeah,
last year.
they definitely they're definitely not good defensively. You allowed the Indianapolis Colts to score 25 points on you last year, and that only happened so many times last year. So you let the Jeff Saturday led Indianapolis Colts beat you in Vegas.
The giving up 33 points Jeff Saturday team.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, it goes to show you just where that team is right now.
You guys
So,
would have won that game if you had Scott Tolzien as your quarterback.
this dude and freaking Scott Tolzien, I don't know what his problem is.
Because Josh hates it when I mention Scott Tolzien.
You know what? Don't bash on Scott Tolzien. He was one of the reasons why
he's garbage.
He was one of the reasons why we ended up with a decent pick the next year.
He was garbage.
I know he was.
He was trash.
I know he was, but that doesn't matter. Can the Colts beat an XFL team? Fuck off. Jeez.
All right. That'll do it for today with the Chasing Larger Sports Stories podcast. Thanks again for everybody tuning in. This is Chase and Derek signing off.